The following podcast is a W2M Network partnership production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
You are listening to the Jobbers Court Podcast, part of the W2M Network. We're a podcast for wrestling fans old and new. Court is now in session. Hello again. Welcome back to Jobbers Court, a roundtable wrestling podcast where we're going to be talking some roundtable topics and giving our opinions on different things going on in wrestling right now. I am Rasquatch, the king of Jobbers Court, joined, like always, by my two comrades. We have Cedric, the wise old owl of wrestling, and the man of 1,004 nicknames, who's currently finishing up the Instant Classic match of the week because somebody overslept. But here we are, getting ready to record. And before we get started, I want to cover kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking quickly about No Mercy, kind of our opinions on that, suspensions in the WWE. Then we're going to kind of turn the tables, talk more in depth about finishing moves, false finishes. We'll have our praise rant shout out of the week, and then we'll get into our Instant Classic match of the week and our United States Championship Fantasy Tournament, which has been exciting and pretty cool to go back and watch some of these matches. So, how are you guys today?
Well, for only being awake for about a half hour, I'm doing all right. So let's rock and roll. The Ayatollah of Howkin-Rolla is ready to go.
All right.
I'm good to go.
And you're good as well?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Ready to, like the honky tonk man?
No, more like Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, okay. Slap nuts, huh?
Somebody's gonna get hit with a guitar over the head.
As long as you're not slapping my nuts.
They're gonna love my nuts.
Oh, these nuts. Anyway, so I guess what we'll do is let's cover our first topic today, and what that is going to be is I want to get your guys' opinion kind of on the No Mercy Network special. Obviously, old news now, but just good to give our quick thoughts on the results. What I would ask is maybe we give two really good things about the network special, and if we can think of any, maybe two things that they could have done better. Cedric, why don't you start us off?
Alrighty, well, when it comes to the SmackDown Network specials, I personally enjoy this one best. It's still in its beginnings, but from all of them, I actually enjoyed this one best. Definitely the main event was kind of odd seeing it first. I think the last minute change with people not truly knowing why, I read a lot of folks saying that they think the reason it happened was because of the debate that was going to happen that evening. Really, I don't think they should have changed it. That's just me, with modern DVRs or people with VCR, old school VCRs, there's so many ways to find out what happened, and I'm not sure how many people really were that interested, but I think that was kind of a weird change last minute.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be something that I would have not done, but obviously they didn't ask my opinion. Shame on them. But at the same time, I actually enjoyed it, to be honest, the main event. And I think that puts pressure on those coming afterwards to up their game a bit. So that's not a bad thing. Now, hopefully those that were watching, the fans, whether in attendance or through the network, also saw it that way. But I'm sure there might have been quite a few that probably just turned off because they're like, well, what can happen best after this main event, and they missed out on one of the probably greatest IC title matches, or at least top 10 title matches that I've seen in a while. And again, that was a plus on those two. Speaks volumes of The Miz, someone who has been criticized a lot, and Dolph Ziggler, who too has had his share of criticism by many of the fans. Definitely, if the world title was going to be the first match, and having an idea how the IC match was going to go, I definitely would have put that match last. So again, that would have been another change that I would have done. If you're going to put the main event first, and knowing how you book the Intercontinental match to go, maybe not knowing how beautifully it was going to go, but having an idea definitely would have made that one the main event. I think that was lost there. Outside of that, I think it went pretty well. Those two really good matches. The women's match, it kind of threw me off a little bit. Again, real life happens. Becky Lynch not being able to defend her title kind of threw me off. Having Bliss fight against Naomi and then having Naomi go over, that too kind of took me a little bit. So I'm not sure about that one. And last, the GM and the commissioner having their hands so much on what's going on, to me, again, it's being a turnoff. I know I mentioned this a few podcasts ago. You guys mentioned that they were like almost absent for that one SmackDown episode that I had not watched, but I guess between that network special and this SmackDown and Talking Smack, they really have asserted themselves like the SmackDown version of The Authority, and to me, it's not really working. But keeping straight to the network special, good 2 fights, definitely would have not done the switch. And once the switch did happen, I would have definitely had the Intercontinental title match be the last one to be defended that night.
Okay, Hulkster, how about you?
Yeah, the match lineup was really awkward for me, and rumor has it was because of the presidential debate starting an hour after No Mercy started, and so they wanted fans to be able to watch the main event before tuning out. If that's really the case, I think that's kind of dumb. Put out a quality show and give people a reason to watch your show. Don't cater to something else. I mean, they already have enough time with Monday nights on Monday Night Football, but Raw's still putting out a quality show despite Monday Night Football. So don't cater to another show, because you're automatically just saying that, well, we know our show isn't going to be watched, so we might as not well put on a good show. But with that thought process in mind, the rearranging of the matches really didn't hurt the quality of the show at all. It was just an awkward placement for someone who's been watching for a long time and is used to a specific order in the way things go. So it wasn't bad. It was just different. But I thought the overall event was fantastic. The Miz and Ziggler's match I thought was phenomenal. Luke Harper coming out at the very end really threw me off, because there was a few rumors saying that whenever he did come back, he might be going to Raw. But I'm happy that he showed up here. That was cool. I didn't see it coming. And the triple threat for the main event at the beginning, that was phenomenal, to coin AJ's phrase. And I saw a bunch of people complaining about, well, he used a chair. It wasn't a clean victory, so that was stupid. AJ's a heel. He's a heel champion. You're going to do what you're going to do to win the match. Just same reason he gave the low blow to Dean Ambrose. You're going to take the opportunity that presents itself. And triple threats for the titles are always no DQ, so he didn't really cheat.
That's it. Just legal at the headlock.
Exactly. It was within the rules, so technically it was a clean victory.
Yeah, some people were complaining because they were like, since when would John Cena just go down with one chair shot? I'm like, they've been fighting for a while,
Yeah. Ask Alberto Del Rio how he went down with like one super kick.
Yeah, exactly. But I really enjoyed it a lot. Even the Nikki Bella and Carmella match was actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was a good match.
maybe the wrestling wasn't, pure athleticism the entire time, but they told a really good story there. I'm starting to enjoy Carmella as the scratchy voiced heel who is like very entitled and wants what she wants. I mean, I hate listening to her scream. It hurts my ears, but it's good television. And I never thought I'd actually be rooting for Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella, not Nikki's Belly. I mean, I root for that all the time. But yeah, it's weird. Like, now that Nikki Bella is a true babyface and not one of those weird, I'm a heel, but I still want you to cheer for me people, like, I actually starting to enjoy her as a true babyface now. So I'm enjoying it. Really, yeah, as Cedric said, the only downside was having Naomi beat Alexa Bliss. It just seemed awkward. But I guess with the opportunistic type of person that Bliss is, I guess it makes sense, because even the way she won the number one contenders match, it was kind of fluky. She just picked up a pinfall as someone else did the work. So I can understand where they're coming from, trying to paint her as the number one contender who isn't quite up to task. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird seeing her lose to Naomi. But not taking anything away from Naomi. Naomi's a gifted athlete. It was just weird to see your number one contender lose a non-title match.
Yeah,
it's just weird. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was a great show. If there's anything I would have changed about it, honestly, probably the only thing I would have changed about it is I would have put Dolph Ziggler and The Miz on last. As surprising and as shocking of a factor as it was seeing Luke Harper, if you would have had that where Miz and Ziggler were, you could have played to it throughout the rest of the night, saying, just showing little different things, having the commentators talk about it, like what's going to happen next now that Luke Harper's back, just plant some more seeds of questioning, and then you have your feel-good moment at the very end of the show with Ziggler picking up the IC title, and maybe they just didn't have money for confetti to fall from the ceiling, or didn't have enough time to put the confetti up there, so that's why they didn't put him on last. Because, I mean, if no confetti falls at the very end of a feel-good championship win to close out a show, then it's not like it really happened, right?
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So, yeah, that's all I got. I know I'm a little long-winded, but
it's
I enjoyed the show a lot.
So I'm actually gonna disagree with you guys in one instance. I actually think that it was morally responsible for the WWE to have put their main event on first, thinking about the people who were gonna turn over and watch the presidential debates. Now, I love wrestling a lot, but when it comes to real world issues, especially concerning like who's going to be our potential next president, and even no matter how I feel about the two candidates in general, and we saw the results of the debate, I still think it was very responsible of them to have told the audience, you know what, we're going to give you your main event first, and then we completely understand if you change the channel and you watch the debates, and then maybe you can come join us for the last match after the debates are over. So I actually had no problem with it. That might seem weird, but so Miz and Ziggler put on an absolute clinic again. There was even an Eddie Guerrero tribute with the loss of the boot on Dolph Ziggler's part. There was a lot of little subtle things in that match. The other thing I loved is being worked, and Ziggler worked us for weeks leading up to this, and so when that happens, I was excited about it, and it was great to see, because if I can get worked, I enjoy it a lot. Much like the Lesnar Orton thing, it was just, it's not too often you do that, and you just absolutely didn't see that coming. So for me, the main issues I had was, again, Alexa Bliss being beaten, your number one contender now. Why should we even worry about if this match is going to take place? And it still may not. I mean, she's defending. They said Becky Lynch will defend her title in November, but they could always change the opponent if they had to. The other thing I wanted to say about this one was that I enjoy Luke Harper coming out. I liked it a lot, but you couldn't include Eric Rowan anywhere.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then even on the SmackDown following, Eric Rowan was nowhere to be found. And So I mean, as bad as they're pushing him, it just they could have, as a trio, they could have looked even more dominant. But I guess that is what it is. Uh, Other than that, I don't have anything else really to say except that enjoyed it overall. Thought the only thing I was gonna say is I think there's only one person who enjoys listening to Carmella scream, and that's probably Big Cass. I'll let you guys take that however you want. And
Big cash.
other than that, um, yeah, it was a good solid. I didn't enjoy it as much as Backlash, but still thought it was a very, very, very well put together network special. You guys have any other takeaways or thoughts?
Well, I did have a quick thought, only because you mentioned Big Cass and Carmella. I wonder if he nicknames himself Little Enzo so that they're all three involved.
Good lord.
You can't teach that.
No, you can't. Jeez. I didn't know we were dipping. Well, jeez, phrasing. I didn't know we were getting into that kind of stuff already this early.
It's early.
I was gonna mention, isn't Eric Rowan hurt again?
Is he?
And that's why he was. I'm just while you guys were talking, I looked up Eric Rowan, and there's an article in the Inquisitor that says Rowan is now expected to miss anywhere from 4 to 6 months with a shoulder injury. He's been leaving cryptic messages on his social media, so you can draw your own conclusion of what his character might look like when he returns in 2017.
Oh, because I was gonna say they didn't even need to make him work. He could just wear the sheep mask and stand there, like that's
Yeah,
But
that might
I
be
guess
why.
if that's the case. The thing is, Wyatt's got to get more followers. Otherwise, this is sort of it's kind of a moot point.
It's-
I
some-
honestly think he's going to turn Randy Orton, and that's going to turn into something big.
That would be crazy. Well, yeah, here's another article. October 4th, Eric Rowan went under the knife.
Ah, okay. So that makes sense then. I had not been investigating that too thoroughly, so guess that makes sense
the
then.
the funny thing about if Bray Wyatt were to turn Randy Orton in some way, somehow they unite, which would be pretty epic in my opinion. I can see folks kind of comparing that to um, Matt Hardy and his character turning Jeff Hardy into Brother Nero and
Sure.
doing their demented look. So that get ready for that one.
Yeah, and you know what? That's fine. They can compare it all they
If it
want.
works, it works. If it works,
That's
it
nice,
works.
because at the end of the day, TNA is going to be bankrupt here probably in a couple weeks based on everything that it started looking at. So that's been a
Non-existent.
complete mess. That's a whole nother story altogether. But all right, well, turning the corner, kind of talking about this great network special. How about some bad news? What about Paige being suspended again? So now she goes to a 60-day suspension. Um, she claims it was for painkillers, which were given to her by a doctor in England, I believe is the way the story goes. And then, but if you get any kind of prescription like that outside of a WWE doctor and you test positive, even if you have a script, you will be suspended because of the doping scandal and all the stuff that they went through. They just don't play around anymore. WWE then responded that no, she tested positive for an illegal drug. Didn't say which one, just that it was an illegal drug. What's your guys' take on this, Houkster? What do you get? What is she done? At least in the WWE. I mean, she's already going to have an injury. She's going to be out, 9-10 months anyway. Do you think they should just release her? Because otherwise they're paying her for no reason.
Well, to be honest, I think there's a lot that we really don't know what's going on. Obviously, is some big disagreement because it's drawing in her family, drawing in Alberto. It's not Del Rio anymore. I don't know if you want to call him El Patron or El Presidente, because I know he's going by a couple different names depending on what show he's working for. But he's involved in it too. It just seems like a lot of drama, and it's weird because you hear the drama, you hear the rumors. And it's sad because when she was signed and when she first came over, everyone was like, "Yeah, she had this great big career, and she was doing really well." And then for some reason she started dating Alberto Del Rio, and you're happy. That's cool. More power to you. I'm glad you guys are happy. But it seems like as soon as those two started dating, that's when her career and his career started really swirling down the toilet. And I've heard rumors about WWE not wanting them to be together and trying to break them up. If that is really a true thing as well, I can see maybe why WWE put that out there if Paige is telling the truth, or maybe Paige isn't telling the truth and WWE's in the right. There's just so much there that we really don't know as far as the fine details. So, bottom line, I really don't want to see Paige go, but if it's going to be to her and his happiness together and they continue being together, more power to them. You can always watch them on WCPW, World Culture Pole Wrestling. So, yeah, it sucks. I don't want to see her not on WWE, but whatever happens, happens. I hope not.
Cedric, what do you got for this?
I knew things were really going bad when she started screaming in every arena she was fighting at, "This is my house." Poor girl needed a house, Things were not working too well. That's just what I think.
Homeless.
Well, I mean, WWE's her first job outside of England, outside of her parents' house. So,
Yes, it's pretty sad that she wasn't really prepared, but
well, you know what they say, when you go into somewhere new, you make it your own, right?
I don't say that, but anyway,
I've never said that.
Alberto unemployed. No, well, not really. We shouldn't call him that either. He took her in. Good for him,
Mm-hmm. Then he got stabbed for it.
Probably by her.
Yeah, they rubbed that one pushed that one under the rug too. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so you said rub that one, and I'm like, come on now.
Under the rug too. Anyway, when it comes to the whole drug issue and WWE having the last word, I'm sorry for all of those that believe that anything that comes from the WWE is Bible. Like how Stanley said, there's more to this than what we know. If as an employee, if she knows that anything outside of the WWE, medical wise or prescription wise, is gonna be considered a drug or something like that, she really shouldn't be doing that. But then again, we've heard in the past wrestlers who have claimed not to be taken care of as well by the WWE doctors as they have been by searching their own doctors. This is something that we've heard in different sports where people claim, hey, the doctors provided by Team X is not as good as the ones that I've gotten. So that whole mess needs to be at some point taken care of, because these guys and gals are putting their health on the line every time they have a match. And why wouldn't you want to take care, regardless if that's not your moneymaker, why wouldn't you want to take care of your people? That's one thing. Two, get all the family getting involved and all the drama doesn't help at all. It just adds more to this. So without really knowing what this illegal substance is, because I heard a few podcasts, I'm not going to mention them, and they immediately dismissed Paige. Oh, if WWE said this, then she's done. I can't feel sorry for her, this and that. Without knowing really what's going on, I really wouldn't take WWE's illegal substance immediately to as, well, she's wrong, they're right. And then to add more to the whole thing, to this whole nonsense, the rumors that they're trying to split them apart when we have so many real life couples, with the most high profile one being Triple H and Stephanie, don't really get why do you want to get involved. That to me doesn't make any sense. You already have Rusev and Lana, Nikki and John, Brie and Daniel, and like I said, Naomi and one of the Usos, Triple. You have so many freaking relationships right now. If it's true that they're getting involved in this one, I just don't get it. I don't understand why they would even be doing this.
Well, you know why, right? Because
no, I just said I don't.
All those other women, yes, they're hot, but they're also with their main event people. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, Alberto Del Rio has been pretty much a mid-card upper guy, and he's always been a heel. He's always been the guy that they've pushed as the bad guy. And Paige, on the other hand, sure, she flip-flops between heel and babyface sometimes, but she's that girl that everyone freaking loves. And she's the girl that many people age 15 to 52 really are super just fatally attracted to. And you may be attracted to other people, but Paige is that, like, I gotta watch her, I gotta have her. Like, she's like the PG rated sex symbol. She's like the
Whew.
she's like the Sunny or the Sable of the PG era to me.
Man, I
And
gotta.
My feathers are getting
when you
ruffled.
put her in a relationship, like, it's like, oh no, she's off limits.
I gotta completely
You know?
disagree. I gotta completely disagree with you
So-
on a couple points.
All right.
So wait, but
Go
so
ahead.
what, by saying the whole like being those guys are with the or those ladies are with the top notch or the upper echelon. No matter how much they like to scream from the announce table how great the Usos are, I don't consider them that the one that Naomi's married to as a top guy. I don't consider Big Cass as a top guy, and we all know that Carmella's with Big Cass, and that's just two that come to mind. I'm not mentioning any other folks. So to me, that really is none of their business. Keep doing. You haven't really established storylines with these people, so their relationship and whatever else happens, because who knows who else is dating who backstage. I don't follow that the whole soap opera online. To me, if that's even a case and it's being involved with this drug case, I think it's just too much of a mess. At the end of the day, if you're not gonna do nothing with the girl, you're not gonna do nothing with Alberto. Alberto's already gone. She wants to stay happy with him. Then just release her and let her find happiness wherever. It's working with Cody and his wife. It's working with others. So just let them continue on. And because it's dumb. This is one thing. The drug substance is too serious of a topic to be mixed with this soap opera, and then hurting people's careers. That's just what I think. At the end, WWE is still going to be standing, so let Paige and Alberto find their happiness somewhere else.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. Like I said, what I just spurted out there, I'm speaking specifically from an evil corporation type of mindset. So it's not something I agree or something I would condone, but I can see the darkness, if that makes sense.
See, I'm going to look at this from a business perspective too, but I'm going to look at it from a completely different lens. So you have a guy who is notorious for having an attitude problem, is notorious for having like a partying and or behavioral problem in the company, and that's Alberto Del Rio, which he did in his previous run there, and then kind of started to see those same things happening on his current run. And you're Triple H and you already don't like the guy. Didn't want to bring him in. That was Vince's call. So when it comes to that, on the other hand, you have Paige, who you brought up in NXT, and you saw this potential in, and you see all of this, everything that she's been doing in her career, and you suddenly see her gravitating toward this person that could or could not be cancerous to her career. Do you think that is something? At the end of the day, it's none of their business. You guys are absolutely right about that. I just think it's not. I don't think it has anything to do with this guy's a top guy and this guy's not a top guy. I think it has to do with they look at Alberto and the issues that he's had, and they're seeing someone being drawn into that potentially, along with him because of their relationship, and they see this potential in that person and they don't really want them to go down that path. But end of the day,
that makes sense.
It's not their choice.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And honestly, I know lots of stuff I've been reading about Triple H and him having heat anyway, and it's one of those things that I think that's probably more so what's going on, just in my opinion.
Rasmus, I got a question for you, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
She has the potential and everything like you're saying, But what has she been doing lately? For maybe even this past year, So how I don't know how long they've been dating. I really don't. But if let's say that
About 6 months.
it, let's say that there's some truth, like what you're saying, that they're thinking the same way. She can still be, hey, sit her down, be like, hey, look, this is what we're thinking. But like at the end of the day, it's her business, and to punish her because she's going out, if there is such a thing as she's being punished because of that, her storylines haven't been really relevant in quite a while.
She's been hurt
So
too
Yeah,
okay,
so
well,
she's been dealing with injury for a good
for
while.
for almost a year, really,
Yeah.
okay,
realistically.
well,
Because
I
even
just
when
want,
she was still wrestling, she was wrestling hurt.
I don't know.
It,
I see your point of view, and I can see that happening. From a business standpoint, like you're saying, you don't want someone that you think has potential, either currently or in the future, to get sucked in a bad lifestyle. I know Alberto has had his point of view as well. People, WWE has presented their side of the story. He has had his. Obviously, somewhere in the middle, there's got to be the truth to it. So I don't
sure.
know. It's just, if she's
I
happy, if she wants to stay with him, I don't know how long this relationship is gonna last, but if it's really gonna affect her at the job, then maybe both sides should just split amicably, and hopefully down the road they can get back together, and good business can be done. But for right now, I think the uglier thing is the whole drug issue, and
see
like Hawk Stanley said, not knowing what's going on. I don't know.
see me personally, if I'm a decision maker in that company, I would have released her. Um, but that's primarily because I think at the end of the day, it's going to cause way less issues because now at least she's released and she can go be in her relationship that we may have already said is not good for her. And if we've said that and she said, hey, we don't care, then okay, well, you've had a second uh, substance issue. That's 60 days. You're also going to be hurt for the next 9 months. So we're just, we're going to go ahead and part ways. You'd think if you were in her shoes, and again, she's what, 25? I think if you
I don't even
were,
think she's that old, is she?
I think she's either 24 or 25.
Okay.
I think that if you're in her shoes, you think you just want to lay low and get paid. I mean, you're still getting paid even though you're injured. So my advice to Paige would be just lay low and heal. Let everything else see what happens, 7, 8, 9 months down the road when you're actually recovered and back and ready to go.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
And well, I think that's sound advice. And Paige, I highly doubt you're listening to this podcast, but if you are, we love you for more reasons than just your appearance. You are an incredibly talented athlete. You are a superb performer, and we love watching you on TV. Despite what anybody wants to chime in about your relationship status, whatever makes you happy, do it. And if that means we don't see you on TV for whatever reason, it's going to be a sad day. But do what makes you happy, and do what's best for you.
All right, Cedric, you got anything else?
Just do you.
Cool. I think that was, and that's a heated topic, man, and it can go so many, different ways on different things like that. None of us know at the end of the day what is going on. We're all just speculating. But hopefully she'll have a speedy recovery. I know she's going to have to get some surgery done as well. So let's get into something less heavy, unless you have to pick up Andre the Giant with your finisher. What we're going to be talking about is going to be finishing moves, false finishes, setup moves, and protecting your finishing move. So with that in mind, just going to open up this topic as broad as that, and then we're going to get narrowed down into it. So Cedric, why don't you start us off? Just give us your thoughts on false finishes, setup moves, finishing moves, all of that, and we'll continue to perfect this as we delve into the topic.
Well, when it comes to moves, whether it's just your regular setup moves, your finishing moves, false finishes, they have a place in the history of wrestling. I was watching some old school wrestling in during all these podcasts when we're talking about instant classics and whatnot in the fantasy tournaments. It's amazing to see what once was considered a finishing move today barely does anything. It's not even a setup. It just happens. It's just one chain move that you add just to have a longer match. But obviously, without finishing moves, there are wrestlers that their finishing move is them. It's what puts them on the map. When Stone Cold Steve Austin was stunning Steve, or whatever, I think it was Dream Master, when he
Ring
was
Ringmaster.
under Ringmaster with Ted DiBiase,
Mhm.
seeing him do the $1 million dream hold, it was nice, but it was not him. It was more the $1 million man. That he was known for that. But here comes the stunner, the Stone Cold Stunner, and holy Lord, who doesn't get goosebumps to this day watching him stun somebody, even if it doesn't look as good as it used to. Same thing with Bret Hart. The sharpshooter for me, that's Bret. I don't think too much about the Scorpion Deathlock anymore. Sorry, Sting. I think of Sting more as the Death Drop. I actually like even more. But the sharpshooter, so a finishing move can really put a wrestler, in my opinion, on the map. So it has its place, and sometimes it's sad to see a indie wrestler come into the WWE and not be allowed to do their finisher that they're known for because it's not considered a safe move, which is a whole different topic. But when it comes to false finishes have their place. It makes very interesting when you see somebody who should be done kick out of a finishing move or break out of a finishing move. It definitely adds that much more to a match, in my opinion. But it can also be overdone. I know, gosh dang, I always forget these kids' name. I always remember the generation me for some dumb reason,
Oh, the
even though
Young Bucks. Yeah.
I should thank you. The Young Bucks. These guys are notorious for having way too many false finishes. And to an extent, it doesn't look right. If you're doing some 650 splash into a power drive and the person kicks on the foot after one count, kind of makes you look a little bit weak, I think, even though it looks really nice. So false finishes can amp up a match, get you just roaring and screaming and jumping out of your seat, but I think it can also take away a little bit from the match. If it's something that's false finish after false finish, and you're like, good Lord, what's gonna be the finishing move? And it's a small package. So, and by small package, I'm not talking about Hornswoggle, but just letting you guys
Mhm.
know.
All right. Hulkster, finishing moves in general?
In general, I believe that finishing moves should be just that, finishing moves, match moves that end the match. Uh, to me, I would love to see more signature moves be finishers. Uh, I would love to see more pinfalls after a suplex roll up or after just a schoolboy or just these smaller moves. Cedric talked about, a couple decades ago, finishing moves were so much simpler. You look at Jake the Snake Roberts; he did a DDT, and his DDT was it. Like his DDT back in the day was like Randy Orton's RKO. Now it only takes one to finish the match, and now who doesn't do a DDT? And a DDT basically is just another chain wrestle or just another transition move. Seems like now. I understand, the evolution of the game. That makes sense. However, when you have two or three false finishes on a mid card match, it just I don't know. It just takes a certain air or a certain disbelief and just ruins that for me. Uh, a year and a half ago, when John Cena was the U.S. champion and he started doing that springboard stunner, as awesome of a move as that was, I do not remember him ever finishing an opponent with that move.
Never.
It always took at least two AAs for him to finish a match. And that's even saying something in itself, because when he was first going up as the main guy, 1AA was it, and now it seems like there's always two or three, or at least always the first one is always reversed. Seems like now, or kicked out of two, and I would just like to see finishers be finishers again. I'm okay with seeing false finishes in a very tough feud, pay-per-view matches, main event matches. I'm okay with seeing that. Like, that's fine because it adds suspense. But when you're seeing at least one false finish in every single match on the card, it just deteriorates the move for me.
Okay. So a couple things for me. Number one, I love false finishes if they're not done after a finishing move. For me, you have to protect a person's finisher, because in some ways that's, as Cedric said, that is them. That is who they are. So a story for you that I heard, I was listening to Ricky Steamboat tell it, and he said that there was a time him and Jake the Snake were wrestling, and Jake hits him with the DDT. He's out cold. So he said with Jake's DDT, you would sell it until Jake completely got out of the ring and walked pretty much all the way to the back. You sold that finish. You were out cold until he left because you protected that one finishing move. So apparently Jake Roberts goes to take his snake. It was at a live show. He takes his snake out, and he, so to speak, and he's going to put it on Ricky the Dragon. And apparently the snake was having none of it. He actually wraps around Jake and is choking him a little bit. And he said that Jake kind of wrestled around with the snake a little bit, and he says, "Rick, help me." And Steamboat said he opened one eye. He looked at Jake and said, I'm gonna expose your finish if I help you." And he's like, "Damn it, help me." And he lays there a little bit longer, finally gets up, helps Jake with the snake or whatever, and then rolls out of the ring. But it's funny to me, that story tells you everything you need to know about a finishing move. It needs to be protected. I am totally okay with countering a finisher 19 times if that's what it takes in a match. And every once in a while, kicking out of a finishing move is okay. Like Hauck said, if it's a highly contested match on a network special, I could totally see one finisher being kicked out of. I got it on each side. But I know that when Hulk Hogan kicked out of the perfect plex, when Bret Hart kicked out of the perfect plex, that was a big deal because nobody ever kicked out of it. When it was Ultimate Warrior got hit with the leg drop and, pseudo no-sold it. When, I'm thinking of these different times back when these certain finishing moves that were all done, it's out of here. When somebody kicked out of them, it was a big deal. Nowadays, though, it seems like a guy hits their finish twice in a match and on almost every match, and then it takes the third one to finish it off. So I don't know if they're trying to, with the way they develop matches now, I don't know if they're trying to just say, okay, they want to show how tough each wrestler is, that they can take these three finishers, or if it actually weakens the appearance of the guy doing the finisher. I don't know. But that's just something I know, and to me, the importance of the finishing move couldn't be more. One thing, real quick, about setup moves. So, to me, having the 5 moves of doom people talk about, right? For several different people, I like that. Whenever you can chain the same 4 or 5 moves together, I love that because you know what's coming and you're anticipating it. When Bret Hart would hit that Russian leg sweep, and then he'd go to the second rope, and then he'd hit the elbow drop off the second rope, and then he'd grab their legs and he'd stomp on their midsection, and then he, would start looking at the climb. When you saw those moves, you knew that you were transitioning to getting closer to the end of the match. And I don't think enough of those things happen anymore either. It seems like finishers get hit out of nowhere and then you kick out of them. Jake the Snake had just the little thing he did with his finger. I don't know what that has to do with the DDT, but that was just the signal.
You remember that? Yeah,
DDT.
he would do it after the short arm clothesline.
Yeah, right after the short arm clothesline, and then he'd give you the finger wave, and that was it. Randy Savage would point to the top rope. He'd go up there, jump on it, and he'd raise his hands clean in the air, and then you were anticipating that elbow drop. Hulk Hogan had the big boot. There's moves that they have to do to set up these finishers. It wouldn't make any sense for Hulk Hogan to body slam a guy and then just give him a leg drop. That just wouldn't seem right. He has to hit him with the big boot first. Same thing with Hulk hulking up. You can't have that. You couldn't have him hitting the leg drop or anything like that if he didn't Hulk up first. So I think that there's transitional. I think that having those maneuvers set out, using them as transitional maneuvers is the perfect way to get away with not having to use a finishing move several times and to transition a match. Like Hawk said, though, there's float over DDTs, tornado DDTs, DDTs on chairs, and people just get up from them. But not Jake's DDT. I guarantee even to this day, Jake Roberts could probably come in, hit a DDT, and you better sell that thing for 15 minutes if he wants you to.
Yeah. That reminds me of a video by Just Incredible I watched a few years ago when I first really started getting into the science of professional wrestling. What's the science of professional wrestling? Well, it's the psychology and how to book a match. And Just Incredible would say, when I'm working the indies, or when I first jumped into WWE or WWF at the time, coming from ECW, I did the super kick, I did the tombstone pile driver, I did power bombs. But if the Undertaker was on the card with me, if Shawn Michaels was on the card with me, there's no way in hell I would ever do a super kick or a pile driver, because my moves are not finisher moves. Those guys, when they do it, it's the end all be all. So if you do a move that's similar to another guy and it's similar to his finisher, don't you dare do that same move on the same card.
No kidding. Well, not only that, but it's disrespectful to the guy to use their finish. That's why you don't see two people generally with the same finishing moves, because it's disrespectful to a guy on the card. Case in point, another funny story. Mick Foley talking about when he was in TNA and he was going to do a match with some tacks. And Abyss came up to him and said, "Mr. Foley, I'm sorry, but you can't use the tacks because that's my thing." And apparently, Mick Foley looked at him, just laughed, took exception to the fact that of all the people, he's going to tell him he can't use tacks in a match, and then still use the tacks. But it just goes to show you that you got to think about where you are and who you're talking to. If I'm Abyss and like a legend comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm going to use your finish," by all means, please use my finish. It's fine,
Now,
But
speaking of wrestlers and finishing moves, Dean Ambrose, when he first started coming up with the Shield, his version of the Dirty Deeds was basically the same thing as EC3's One Percenter.
yeah,
Is that why he switched to the double underhook?
I
So
don't
he didn't have the same finisher as TNA's top guy?
I don't know. I think maybe he just liked the way that the double underhook DDT or I don't think Mick called it anything different. I think it was still called the double arm DDT.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he just liked that because you can hit it on anybody, you can hit it out of nowhere, you can hit it a lot faster. I don't know what made him change it to a different finish.
Yeah, because I say they never really explained why, but even though it has the same name, so I don't know. I always thought it was kind of weird.
So one more thing I've been hearing talked about in wrestling today, and I wanted to get your guys' opinions on it. Is so I've been hearing people talk about a wrestler should have a desperation finisher. So you've got a typical finishing move, such as Roman Reigns doing his spear, right, as a finish. Well, what if he can't finish the match with a spear? He needs a super uber whatever finisher. And so a lot of people are talking about how wrestlers today should have an ultra finish. And so for Roman Reigns, maybe using the Black Tiger Bomb or the Razor's Edge into a sit-down power bomb should be his ultra finish. And I guess I don't disagree with that, but I hope that maybe this leads to a transition of seeing a true finishing move coming back where they're only going to, because I don't see Roman use that move unless it's in like a big match. And it's, he doesn't usually just use that on Monday Night Raw on a general match. I've only seen him use it a few times and he's used it, but he's never finished anyone with it. So, I don't know. Do you guys think that with the new generation of wrestling, these uber finishes, these ultra finishes, whatever you want to call them, do you think that they're necessary, or is it just overkill?
Well, honestly, I kind of like it. And case in point, you got Finn Balor with the 1916, and you got Seth Rollins with, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's similar to a Falcon Arrow type move.
It is a Falcon
I forgot exactly what he calls, but
he has the Phoenix Flash too.
Yeah, you see it maybe once every few months, and like I said, his Falcon Arrow. I think I've only seen it on WWE once. Yet when he was coming up in the Indies, like that was his main go-to, in addition to the curb stomp, which he doesn't do that anymore either. But I like that. I like that a lot because it's that, whoa, he really had to dig deep into the well to finish this match kind of thing. I like that, to keep something in their back pocket that they don't use every night. And I guess you could say with Roman Reigns, yeah, I would like that, because to me the spear is such an overused move. So many people have done the spear over the years that I've gotten to the point of watching the spear the same way I watch the DDT. Even though usually when somebody hits a spear like Goldberg or Roman Reigns, it's usually the end of the match, or the gore from Rhino, it's usually the end of the match. But so many people use it, it just, I don't know, it's kind of losing some of its flavor to me.
No, you're numb to it. And Jim Ross actually talked about that. He said he watches bumps now and he'll start realizing that he's numb to, so like if a match is just an absolute car wreck and guys are just taking wild bumps the entire match, by the end of the match, he's just numb to all the bumps. And he's like, yeah, it was impressive, but it wasn't as good as that crazy bump he took like 2 minutes ago. And then he says he has to stop himself and go, wait a minute, like in a normal, typical match, that was a crazy bump. And he has to bring himself back to reality just because stuff like that gets overused.
And case in point to that, the Ricochet Will Ospreay match that we saw, that was crazy fast paced the entire time. There was so much action. Yet you get numb to some of the bumps, because it's just right back to back, one after the other. Like the entire match was basically false finishes. Yeah, it was fun to watch, but it's a heart burner, because like every single one you get numb to it after like the first 10 minutes.
Get some wrestling acid reflux.
Good analogy.
There you go. Cedric, what are your thoughts on these Uber finishers?
It's not a bad idea. It's not, when you have a small guy who can pick up someone his size or maybe just a little bit bigger and powerbomb him, but then you put him against a bigger guy like Batista. I don't think I ever saw Batista try to powerbomb Mark Henry. So to have a second finish or something else that they can apply and use with someone that clearly they cannot apply their normal go-to finishing move, there's nothing wrong with that. And that was like, for right now, I'm not a big fan of seeing Seth Rollins doing the pedigree. Triple H, that's his baby. The pedigree was his thing. At one point it was even being sold as that's my move, and once I apply it, nobody's gonna get up from it. So to see Seth Rollins do the pedigree, I'm not a fan of that. If the curb stomp was gonna be banned because it was too rough, or what, all the 10,000 reasons that they gave, which is a whole different topic, then having him do some other finishing move from things that he would do, for example, the God's Last Gift small package driver, I think that move is pretty amazing, the way he applies it. And it's quite believable to also, that was his finishing move in Ring of Honor. So having a second move, I have no problems with it. Like you said, the spear's way overdone. I remember seeing Bobby Lashley doing his spear and then doing a little flip that he does, and then I saw Moose do the same thing, and I'm like, okay, now it's not even unique anymore. Now you got two different people doing the same thing.
Mhm.
So having kind of like a secondary finisher move, if you want to call it that, and be specific for like high profile matches. Even AJ Styles, when he was doing the phenomenal forearm, people were complaining. I was really hoping that he would do the Styles Clash on a really big match, and he ended up using it. I think it was Curtis Axel. And I was
Curtis
like,
Axel
really?
was his first finish.
I was like, damn, seriously? Like, you just wasted a move that could have been amazing as a finisher in a high pay-per-view special, network special. So having that one go-to move, I don't see anything wrong with that. And what you were talking about earlier about the different those chain moves that get you to the finisher, I agree with you 100%. That used to get me all wild up seeing Bret Hart, because I knew he was setting him up, and the commentators would say they would literally say he's setting up the person the for the sharpshooter. He had variations of the backbreakers, softening up the back, maybe the legs or stuff like that. But once you saw the Russian leg sweep, the backbreaker, the second turnbuckle elbow drop, you knew the sharpshooter was coming. Now these guys, you have no clue. DDP's Diamond Cutter out of nowhere was cool. Then obviously RKO out of nowhere was cool, but not every wrestler should have that move that just comes out of nowhere and the match is over. It's kind of cool seeing them slowly but surely setting you up. Unless it's a power bomb, like Batista power bombing you out of nowhere was always interesting. But yeah, having set of moves into a finishing is cool. Having that one special secondary move that you only see every now and then is also amazing. I'm glad you mentioned what the heck, Prince Devitt. He has a new name, damn it.
Finn Balor.
Finn Balor, 1916.
Bloody Sunday was always special because it was kept for the current leader of the Bullet Club. Obviously, Kenny Omega does it right now. AJ Styles did it before, and they will do their common to us finishing move followed by that move. Once he started doing that on NXT, just for laughing giggles after I was like, you know what? You're kind of overdoing that move now. Leave it for a really high profile match where you want to make a statement, then use it. Don't use it all the time. So I agree. It's almost like stealing somebody's finisher moves during the match. Nothing says disrespect in a match, but if that's what it calls for, it's cool. But if you do it every single match, if everybody's stealing your finisher move, it looks pretty dumb. So I like your example of Mick Foley and what's his face that you just mentioned, and I already forgot. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, speaking of stealing finishers, there's that video of the house show with Kevin Owens versus Seth
funny.
Rollins.
Yeah.
With KO doing the rock bottom, and then Seth Rollins following up suit with a hulking up into Hulk Hogan's leg drop. How do you guys feel about superstars bringing back old moves, or should that be relegated just to house shows?
At a house show, perfectly cool with it. Think it's pretty awesome. If I'd have saw it on TV, I probably wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm not a fan of Bailey hulking up. I gotta be honest with you guys. I'm like, really? I'm like, your character's this lovable girl, and all of a sudden you just hulking up after getting bashed your head 4 times on a turnbuckle. It doesn't really work for me. If
anything, Bailey should be overselling. She needs to get the sympathy,
Yeah.
She's got to get that sympathy build up in the match, and then when she makes her comeback, it makes it all that much. But if somebody bashes her head into the turnbuckle and she turns into the Ultimate Warrior, it just doesn't do it for me. I'm just saying.
And the house show is good. In the house show, it's just pure entertainment, man. They're gonna get the fans all crazy, and you might just want to go to a house show. Yeah. Like, you know what? I don't know what these guys are gonna come up with next time. So if they're locally, I want to watch it.
I went to a house show in Shreveport, and out comes William Regal and Christian, and they were gonna wrestle. And so William Regal does the thing where he trips and falls over the second rope, and he falls down, and everybody laughs at him, and so then he's talking bad on the microphone to everybody for laughing at him or whatever. And so Christian looks at William Regal and he just points at him. And the entire crowd is like, boo, like really loud, you know? And then Christian points at himself and the whole place goes crazy. He did this for probably 2 or 3 full minutes. Just back to Regal, boo. Back to him, cheer. And the crowd just went along with it for like 2 or 3 solid minutes. And it's things like that that you can see at a house show that if it was on TV, it would have been one of the boringest things you'd ever seen. But at a house show, it was just really funny to have felt the crowd and how into they were to just let them be free to mess around. And you could really see more of their personality because they're not afraid to just try different things there because it's not televised. They don't got to worry about botching it. And so to me, I think that things done like that at house shows are pretty amazing. I think it's things like that would bring somebody back in. And there might be some young viewers out there who had no idea what the hell Seth Rollins was doing, and they look over and like, what's going on? And their parent is like, oh my God, he did the Hulk Hogan leg drop. Then they have to explain it to them, and then they can go back home and watch the network and watch Hulk Hogan hit the leg drop a few times. I think it brings the audience close together, and it never lets those moves be forgotten either. So, just my opinion.
Agreed. And I just want to say this is just regards to pro wrestling in general. If you have never been to a live show and you enjoy pro wrestling, get out and go see a local independent show, or go check out WWE in a live event, not a televised event, because you are missing the best thing about pro wrestling. What the true essence of pro wrestling really is. It's live theater. It's a live performance. It's entertainment, and some of the best shows you're ever going to see are a non-televised show. I kid you not.
Yep, I agree. Completely agree. You guys got anything else concerning finishing moves?
Yeah, actually, there's one more thing. I didn't want to forget this, and I'm glad you brought it back full circle here. Talking about the Uber finishers or the desperation moves.
Uh-huh.
Would you guys be in favor of Cesaro bringing back the UFO?
Where he puts him up on his back.
Yeah, he puts him up on his shoulders, spins around, and transitions it. Sometimes it's just transitioned into a flapjack. Sometimes he transitions it into a power bomb. But he just sits up and he spins for like a full minute.
So it's an air.
He puts his hands on his hips.
So it's an airplane spin, right? If I recall, it's an airplane spin into whatever finish he wants to put at the end of it.
Yeah, but he puts his hands down while he does the airplane spin, so he's not holding on to the guy the entire time. It's one of the coolest moves I've seen on YouTube. I wish I could see that live, and I don't know if he ever has done it on a live event show or not. But it's one of the coolest moves I've ever seen. And plus, since he's got that King of Swing gimmick, it still fits in. It still fits in.
It's probably tough because the way it finishes, it would look a lot like a Blue Thunder Bomb.
Or a Deep Six.
Yeah, and that's kind of Zayn's thing, or it would look like a Deep Six, and that's kind of so. I mean, that could be the potential reason why it's not being used. Maybe Vince thought it was too cheesy. I don't know. I think any kind of move personally, I think that Cesaro's corkscrew European uppercut should be his Uber finisher anyway. Shoot, hitting that thing is, that's
when he springboards?
Yeah.
He hits you good. He hits you good.
Yeah. And so to me, I'm always like, man, and that's one thing about Cesaro. I really love the guy, but sometimes I think that he can be a spot wrestler too. And sometimes I think, especially with his WWE style that he uses, I think he uses a lot of that stuff too much.
Let him drop a few pinfalls after some of those moves.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool if he could do that. And then I was never a fan of the big swing into the sharpshooter as his standard finish. I think he needs a high impact move as a finish, not a submission. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and going back to other finishers, how do you guys feel about the sharpshooter being used, and even the figure four being used by quite a few people now? I understand Cesaro got it from Tyson Kidd, who was the last graduate of the Hart Dungeon, and I understand all the Hart Dynasty guys and Hart Dungeon guys have used it. I'm not sure how The Rock ever actually picked it up. I never got that backstory. But there's that, and then the figure four, with Charlotte, completely understandable. But with the Miz using the figure four, like, how do you guys feel about that?
Well, before Cedric goes, I'll let him take it. The Miz actually works that into his storyline. How during one of the times when he's working with Ric Flair actually passed him that move.
Mm-hmm.
So that
I was
makes
about to say.
logical sense. And I think he's the only person in the company that uses the figure four. Charlotte's is the figure eight. It's a completely different move. Then if we go to the sharpshooter, so if I recall correctly, the sharpshooter thing came along when Steve Austin, who picked up the sharpshooter, he used a version of the cloverleaf though, on Rock during one of the matches, and so to not be outdone, the Rocks applied the sharpshooter, and people just liked it so much that he continued to use it. That one never made a lot of sense to me why he would use the sharpshooter as a finish, but I don't have a problem with Natalya using it. I don't see why Cesaro. I mean, it's a throwback to Tyson Kidd, I get it, but I think that there's better finishers out there for Cesaro than the sharpshooter. I just wish somebody would actually beat someone with a figure four. I don't think that that's happened.
Yeah, it's been a while.
In a long, long time. Even Ric Flair hardly ever beats anybody with a figure four.
The Miz storyline with Ric Flair. If you have the privilege and the honor to wrestle a wrestler that's already past their prime, and storyline wise, he actually passes on a move to you, I think that makes sense. Even Ambrose doing his underhook DDT, reminiscent of Mick Foley, one of his characters, doing it. If it's something that gets passed on, I think it looks amazing. When it's just you doing it for the sake of doing it, and it's not even a finisher, it's not even a setup, you just do it and never beat anybody. To me, it diminishes the value of the move.
Yeah.
Bret Hart, to me, is the sharpshooter. That's him. That's his finisher. To see somebody kick out of his sharpshooter, which probably you can count with one hand and still have fingers left, how many people got out of it, to me, that's Bret Hart. And to see so many people using it, their variation, not even as clean and as powerful as he made it look, because he really made it look like you're gonna tap out. Some of these guys, the way they do it, even when The Rock is screaming his lungs out, when he's in it and when he's applying it, it doesn't look anywhere near as good. Even Sting's Scorpion Deathlock does not look like it hurts. You know what I mean? So to use someone's finisher so loosely across a company, I'm not a fan of it. Now, if you do a special in a fight and everybody knows you're paying homage to that person, like Sasha Banks doing a frog splash when everybody knows her respect and admiration for Eddie Guerrero, then that's one thing. But just overdoing it constantly, it throws away from the move and what it signifies, which is that person. Because like I said earlier, finishing move, when done correctly as a finishing, is somebody. A tombstone without Undertaker doing it, it's not really a tombstone.
Or Kane.
It's just a variation of a power drive. Or Kane. And even Kane had his jump very quick into the drive, So he had his version of it, and Undertaker has his version. So even that variation. But when it's just constantly being overused, it almost seems like, guys, are we running out of ideas, So
it's kind of like when let's see, it's kind of like when Triple H uses the Crippler's crossface. That one still really bothers me because there's no insight as to where did he learn it. He just randomly did it one day, and then as a commentator, it's tough because you can't bring up, it's the Crippler's crossface. You just have to call it a crossface, and then it's just there's certain moves, certain things, that need to be retired. Much like the flying headbutt isn't used anymore. Much a lot of those things just aren't used anymore. But
my bad.
I was all right. I think that covered a pretty good amount of time there on finisher move, false finishers, setup moves. You guys got anything else before we move on?
There's one more thing I could add, but I think we've said enough on it.
Cedric?
Favorite finishing moves? Anybody?
Oh, sure. Yeah, why don't we do best finisher, worst finisher real quick?
All right, sounds good to me.
Oh,
Go, Cedric.
Rob-
Cedric, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was gonna go. Best. My favorite finishing move. I'm not gonna call it the best, but my favorite. Uh, Still get goosebumps seeing Stone Cold stun somebody. Bret Hart sharpshooter, definitely, like I said, one of the best in the business. And the one that got me jumping up and down the first time that I saw it, and he has quite a few variations of it, is Super Dragon and PWG, his multiple Psycho Driver versions.
Hmm.
Holy crap. If you've never seen Super Dragon apply his Psycho Driver or the Barry White Driver or whatever he wants to call it, his 5 different variations, look it up on YouTube. It is one of the most deadliest moves ever, if sold correctly by the opponent.
And what about your least favorite?
Least favorite, anything that involves a sock and somebody putting either fingers in somebody's mouth or just hitting you with the cobra. These finishers to me, they have their place for the comic value of it, but when you actually have a high profile match and you win with the darn cobra, it was funny, but it's not really a finisher.
Well, I'm only reason I'm gonna step in here is because the Mr. Sacco, or as it was called, the mandible claw, before he used the Sacco on it, has a legitimate reason and legitimately does hurt. So if you place the middle finger and the ring finger down into the back of someone's tongue and you press on it, there's actually a pressure point there. It's extraordinarily painful, and it also makes it very hard because of the gag reflex to bite the person's fingers. And so the only thing with Sacco is that is a legitimate like submission hold, whereas Cobra, completely agree. Yeah, it's
Yeah, if 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 we're gonna go legitimate, if you're not paying attention and somebody cobras you to the Adam's apple, you're gonna be gasping for
yeah,
air.
but he usually
when
hit
you
him like in the middle of the forehead, like it was the Three Stooges or something.
or on the side of the neck. But even the mandible claw it was funny when you saw the angle. You literally could see Mick's fingers crossed in and just the middle knuckles kind of slightly in the mouth. So it every finisher move has its kind of reality to it. Even the heart punch, which trust me, I used to jump up and down with when Invader would put his punch with a hard cast, and that was you knew that was the high profile match that was gonna finish the
Yeah.
feud when he would come in with his fist casted and give you a darn hard punch. But there's finisher moves that you're like, damn, that looks like it hurts, but really, is that really a finisher move? So, but I agree with you. I would hate to have somebody press behind the back of my tongue and because I'm probably gonna submit. I'm not gonna pass out. I'm just gonna start submitting,
Yeah,
tapping
yeah, I'll be
my
tapping too,
hands like.
no doubt about it. Tappy tappy.
But yeah, but the Cobra, yeah, that was kind of like it was weak. It was funny though. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
It
sure.
was funny, but
Okay,
not really.
for me, so my favorite finishers to watch are number one, the Canadian Destroyer, and that'll probably
Yeah.
always be up there as one of my favorite finishing moves. Because I mean, when you hit that and the dude just looks like they've died, like that. That's just it's like, damn, I think he just killed that guy. That's one of those moves where I could watch it over and over again and just be thoroughly impressed. The other one I like is the one that Sin Cara used to do. I just can't remember. Is it called the Spanish Fly? Where they have the guy almost in like a rock bottom position, and then they basically do a moonsault and they land and drive the guy into the ring. I think it's called the Spanish Fly.
Spanish flag.
Yeah, like a backflip, facebuster kind of thing.
Yeah. But so those are probably my two favorite finishes. My least favorite, and again, it's the People's Elbow and the Five Knuckle Shuffle are two of my least favorite setup moves and or finishing moves. Because it irritates me so damn much. It's like, just stand up. He takes 45 seconds to take the damn thing off, wave his hands back and forth, run the ropes twice, and you still can't stand up. Anyway, and that's why I used to love when he would try to do it to Stone Cold, and Stone Cold would just get up. But those for me are probably my least favorite and my favorite. Hauckster, what do you got?
All right. Well, for my least favorite, you guys may take exception to this, and that's okay. But it's a tie between the X Factor and the Zigzag. Because with the X Factor, basically it's just a driving version of the Bulldog or Face Crusher. And those have almost always been just setup moves. But when Brie Bella or X-Pac does the X Factor, or the Bella Buster as they call it, it's just the same move, and to me, it's never been something that I would really look at as an end all be all move, and so I just never appreciated those moves myself. And with the zigzag, I mean, it's not even a neck breaker; he's just pulling the guy backwards.
It's kind of like a sling blade, though.
With a lot of force.
Yeah, but with the sling blade, he's running, he's got the twist. It's more entertaining to watch. With the zigzag, all he's doing is just pulling the guy backwards. Like I don't know. It's just I mean, yeah, he jumps up, but it's just I don't know.
I would tell you this: Roddy Piper, R.I.P. Finished a lot of men with a running bulldog.
Yeah. Well, again, evolution of wrestling. That's all I'm going to say about that one. R.I.P. Roddy, we love you. But yeah, those are moves that I just never really meh. However, on the flip side, moves that don't look like they'd really be super devastating. Yeah, to me, my all-time favorite is the cutter. Whether that's DDP's version, whether that's the Stone Cold Stunner, which is kind of like a cutter. But to me, my favorite finishing move, and I'm sorry, Shawn Michaels, I love the Sweet Chin music, but Randy Orton's RKO is my absolute favorite finish. Because one, he can hit it out of nowhere, just like the DDP Diamond Cutter, but there's so many variations of it. Catching the guy off the turnbuckle, pulling the guy off the steel cage like he did Seth Rollins, the WrestleMania one where he reverses the curb stomp into an RKO. But yes, you can hit it out of nowhere, and you can hit it at any point during the match. Mm-hmm. Yet one of the reasons I love Randy Orton, and as we talked about earlier, pulling things full circle, the setup moves. Randy Orton, he'll hit the power slam, and then he'll start feeding on the crowd. He'll throw him out and do the Hangman's DDT. And as soon as he hits that Hangman's DDT, the RKO is coming. He gets down, he slams his fist or he slams his forearms, and he pounds and he pounds. And as soon as the guy gets up, boom, RKO. So you can have that perfect long setup for it, or you can hit it out of nowhere. And every time he hits it, just like he's been saying for the last month or two, it only takes one to get to Viperville. Like, I just love seeing the RKO. And maybe that's why they have so many memes on it.
I just kind of feel like being the devil's favorite advocate here. So, what's the difference in the motion of the opponent when they have to take an X Factor versus when they have to take an RKO?
Well, like I said, it's not the move itself. It's the setup. It's the psychology around the move, if that makes sense.
I get it. I was just thinking, I was like, well, really, the RKO is literally the exact same as the X Factor, except in one instance, the guy is turned away from his opponent, and in the other instance, they're turned facing the opponent. But
yeah, and like I said, it sounds bizarre, but if you had like a true ring general using the X Factor, it could be used that very same way, and that could be a very devastating finisher. But I've just never seen the X Factor or the Bella Buster, as Brie called it, or Nikki calls it. I've just never seen it used to that same magnitude, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get you. Like I said, I was just feeling like trying to poke some holes in your logic.
That's all right.
I got a quickie.
Yeah.
Hurricanrana is not a Frankensteiner. One of the most devastating moves, one of my top 5 or top 10.
Yeah,
agreed.
Hurricanrana is not a Frankensteiner.
Completely
if you
different.
think it is, go look up on YouTube Scott Steiner in his peak doing a Frankensteiner. Nothing looked more amazing than that man jumping up in the middle of the ring and flipping somebody onto their head to finish them off. Yeah. And then always finish with his little one-knee pose. Yeah. Like he actually got it.
A Frankensteiner. A Frankensteiner is essentially a Hurricanrana DDT. And you know who else? It's a pretty damn good one. Is Neville, back when he was Pac.
Oh hell yeah!
hit a hell of a Frankensteiner. But
Yeah,
I've seen a lot
that
of
reminds me of
fights.
an interview with James
Well,
Storm about the super kick. He calls it the last call, which is different from the Big Show's last call. Or when James Storm was asked about the super kick, he's like, "What's the difference between the super kick and the last call?" He's like, "Well, the super kick, people just hit that all the time and nothing happens. But when I hit the last call, or when Shawn Michaels hits the Sweet Chin Music, I'd knock their teeth down their throat." And that to me always stands out as just something to sell your own move, to sell your own brand.
well, man, I'll tell you what. This was great. We've completely worked into finishing moves up, down, side to side, up, down, down, left, right. So I think it's time to move on. But I think
Time to finish it.
yeah, I was gonna say. So we've been in here we're starting to creep up on that hour and a half point. We still got a little bit to cover. So what I want to do is let's cover our match of the week. Let's cover our fantasy tournament, and then we'll come back to our praise or rant of the week here toward the end if we have time. So, that being said, I was the person who got to choose the Instant Classic match of the week. With it being a little closer to Halloween, I was really feeling something a little more deathmatch. So, for this week's Instant Classic match of the week, I selected Necro Butcher versus Madman Pondo from Big Japan on October 2nd of 2005. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on this match, and do you feel like it deserved being called an instant classic? Cedric, why don't you start us out?
well, quick correction. Big Show's move is called the Final Cut.
Yeah, the final cut.
Oh, my bad.
Nah. Listen, what makes an instant classic match is very, very unique to each person. You know, we've had commentators from as they're announcing the match, play by play, whatever, call it an instant classic because it's that good because of a feud or whatnot. This is one of those matches that if you followed Necro Butcher, if you followed what was it, Mad Dog?
Madman Pondo.
Madman Pondo, then yeah, it could be for you an instant classic. So this you've always said that the instant classic match is more than just what everybody, your typical fan, will think is an instant classic, but more it tells a story of what we consider an instant classic and a little peek into our, like you would say, our souls, what we like. So this match was one that more than just a match, it was what it was, a death match. You weren't here to look at science of wrestling or technicality or anything like that, even though you saw body slam or suplex. And I even laughed when I saw the referee stop counting because somebody's leg was under the rope. I'm like, really? Do you not see the blood? Do you not see the forks and everything that's been used? And you're going to stop counting because his leg is under the rope? I'm like, all right, cool. A little bit of technical wrestling here. But it was unique. It was different. There was a lot of blood. And what better tribute to Halloween than when you have a match with a lot of blood? And definitely these guys made a name for themselves for these type of matches, and they were legends in their own right in a specific circle. So it was entertaining to watch. I watched it with my son. I think my son left after a few minutes, and I sat through it. I enjoyed what I saw, and I even liked the ending when one of them is given a post-fight interview of sorts, and here comes Necro and says, "You know what? You should put us in a death match because these other two, because we're that much better." And I'm like, wait a minute, he just whooped you, dude. You want to tag with him? Well, that was a sign of respect. So, interesting choice, interesting match, and I gotta go confess tomorrow, bright and early.
All right, Huckster, what did you think of all this?
All right. All read everything.
Yeah,
I'm not
no
talking
doubt.
about Eva Marie. I'm talking about faces. Man, Crimson Mask pretty much throughout the whole match seems like the multiple chair shots, the freaking knife that comes out. Like,
Yep.
holy crap!
Holy
Like,
crap.
this
That's
this
not a
is
knife.
ridiculous. Like, if you thought the Stone Cold and Brian Pillman segment with the gun was crazy, oh my gosh, this in a match, like, oh gosh, that it was crazy. Oh gosh, was it a pile driver? Yeah, or was it a power bomb into the stack of chairs in the middle of the ring? Oh gosh, it was carnage. Like, I mean, when you think of Necro Butcher, you think of a crazy carnage match, but oh man, this is not something I could watch every day. But definitely for Halloween, man, this was bloody, and I dug it. I dug it. I can only watch those kind of matches, very few and very rare. But this was a very fun match to watch. A lot of hardcore, true hardcore action. It reminded me a lot of the old ECW days, but hyped up on something. I don't know.
See, when I started looking at these matches, I started watching a lot of death matches. You have to go to a really dark place to just sit and watch these kind of matches all day. And I really wanted to do the Cactus Jack Terry Funk one, just because of its historical value, and I think it's one that a lot of people have seen. But this one, just the brutality of this particular match and what these guys allow one another to do to each other, it was just crazy to think, hey man, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get this knife and I'm gonna go ahead and work you, and I'll cut you open with this knife, you know, kind of a just nuts. And then the aluminum can is the one that got me, because he takes that aluminum can that's half bent and then puts it on his face and, you know, works him with this aluminum can. That was pretty crazy too. I think that for me, the thing that got me into these things is when I was in Iraq, a friend of mine he got a DVD of Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and he's watched a couple episodes and he goes, "Man, I can't watch this crap. You want this?" And so I said, whatever. I ain't doing anything. I guess I'll watch it. And I started watching it, and I don't know why. For some reason, I just really fell in love with these types of matches. You're right, though. You can't watch these every day. You can't watch them all the time. But it's much like Mick Foley's street fights. One good one every few years is fantastic. And so I think that when it comes to this, if you guys haven't noticed, Rumble of 2000 was one of my favorite matches of all time. That was a bloody just street fight. Edge's match against Mick Foley, one of my favorite matches of all time, is the bloody street fight. So these just seem to be what I gravitate to and the type of intensity that I like to see in my wrestling.
In Puerto Rico, most of the matches, you know, Carlos Colon's greatest matches always ended up at some point him bleeding, you know, and it got to the point where it was almost like you knew it was going to happen. So you're right, you know, if it gets overdone, it can lose its magic. But if it's played out correctly, you know, even like you said, him thinking about the can, the freaking the knife that comes out of nowhere, that machete, stuff like that. But it all the time, like some companies, so that's pretty much every single match. That might be a little bit too much.
Well, I will say that you know, at the end of the day, this was just something I could look back on, and I sat and my 10-year-old sat and watched it with me, and you know, at the end of it, he said, "You know, I don't get it. I don't know why do people watch these types of matches?" And he was like, "It was pretty cool." He was like, "There was some entertaining stuff, but he was like, there wasn't much wrestling in that match." And I told him, I said, "Nope, you're right." And I said that's why there's certain guys who all they do is brawl. There's certain guys who all they do is wrestle technically. All these guys do is use weapons and deathmatch. Just another style. And so he kind of found an appreciation for it, I think, and then wanted to watch John Moxley. So we went and watched some John Moxley's hardcore stuff afterward. But
CZ Dub.
But anyway, thank you guys just for looking at this match and for taking some time to kind of watch it. Like I said, I knew going in it wasn't going to be something for everybody. But you guys got any other takeaways about this?
Yeah, and you pegged on it beautifully the way you painted the picture about you and your son watching it. Like it, the fact that how old your son? You said 10 years old.
He's 10. Yeah.
The fact that a 10-year-old, and good on you for good parenting to watch it with him, but the fact that he's already mature enough to watch this match, recognize just the carnage and the disgusting nature of it, but still find appreciation in the art form. That's beautiful to me, and that's appreciation of pro wrestling as a whole. Because yeah, like we talked about, there's so many different variations of pro wrestling, and there's so many different aspects that each fan can pull something that they like out of. And I really respect you as a father of a budding wrestling fan, and I respect his ability to watch it. Maybe not enjoy it as much as other people would enjoy it, but still find appreciation in it. I dig that. I dig that a lot.
Yeah. Well,
And
thanks.
I love that's why we do these matches.
Yeah. I would say he had to. We had to wait till little brother went to go do something to watch it. But yeah, I watched it with him because I said I don't think my 6-year-old's ready for all that. So he watched the dog kennel from Hell match with Al Snow and was kind of like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, that one's not even brutal. So
Yeah.
But
And okay, so random tie-in here. I don't know if either of you guys are fans of the television show Supernatural, but
Okay.
I watched an episode because me and my wife we binge watched that on Netflix, and I'm watching an episode from last season where they actually have a pro wrestling episode, and it's pretty cool because they have the Miz in it, and they have Sonny do a cameo in there as well as the promoter.
Hmm.
But there's a few other guys that I'm sure they probably are indie wrestlers, but I couldn't put a face to any of them. But they're talking about how dark wrestling can be and how hard of a life it is. But during one of the little matches, there's just a little quick pan out to the crowd where a dad is bringing his son in, and the dad's sitting down. He's got 2 beers in his hands. He's like, "This is the best babysitting ever. You know, I get to drink cheap beer, and the son's entertained." And one of the guys is like, "Yep, that sounds like our childhood." And it's funny because wrestling gets a bad rap because of things like that. But the way that both you and Cedric are raising up your kids, being hardcore fans and really showing the appreciation for the art form rather than just sit down, shut up, and watch this guy body slam another guy, like truly explaining and truly getting them to understand what's happening. To me, I just find that beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, thanks. The only thing I'll say is that I kind of wish I didn't have to have exposed it to them as early as I did. But my 10-year-old, who would have been 9 at the time, he took some of the things so personally, like and he would just cry and cry and cry in certain circumstances, and I think he enjoys it even more now that I explain to him what's going on. Now he doesn't feel scared for the wrestlers anymore.
Good deal.
Because before he would feel scared for them, or he would feel really bad for them, or those type of things. And now I think that he can enjoy it without having to worry. Because before he would be like, are they going to be okay? Am I ever going to see them again? Those type of things when really bad things would happen to a wrestler, and I just have to explain, well, they're hurt, or hey, they're getting suspended, that's why they're gone. I'm also very open with my kids about what's going on. Like when Roman Reigns was suspended, I was the first one to tell him. I said, look, he was doing Adderall. He wasn't supposed to be. He tested positive for a drug test, and that's why he's out for 30 days. I find if you're just honest with them about it, I said now they might do something in the storyline where something else happens, but this is for real what's going on. I think it teaches them life lessons too, and that not everybody's perfect. But
Right.
Cedric, what is it with your family, and I guess what these type of things and sharing with your family, like, what has that done for you guys?
Well, you just I'll give a quick sneaky peek because for those of you that don't know, not much of an article writer, but I think I've been inspired by you guys trying to provide a little bit more for the W2M network. And I think that's going to be my first ever debut article project that I'm trying to work on. So without giving too much away, my article is going to be pretty much on that, on how wrestling, some way, somehow, has strengthened the bonds with my kids. You know, to each their own. Each person has something unique, but it's something special for me. Like I was telling my wife, you know, it's a memory that won't be taken away anytime soon unless I forget it, which you guys know I forget a lot of things. But it definitely it helps. You know, all three of my kids are unique, three different ages, obviously stages in their lives. They have their own likes and dislikes, but you know, it's we have found a common ground. And are they as hardcore as other kids are? No. Do they watch it as much as I would? Maybe not, but definitely, if and even when we are busy, you know, we all tend to find that one little hour and a half or so to sit down and watch and criticize and cheer and or just disagree or agree. So it's special. It has a special place here in the house, and with the podcast and the possibility of all this growing to something bigger through the network, they've obviously been very supportive. While other folks might just see fake and why you wasting your time, you know, they see it, hey, you know, dad likes it or husband likes it, it's an outlet, and it's an opportunity that eventually can grow into something. So they've always known dad will support them, even if the world doesn't, and they're right, as they could continue to grow and mature, they've done the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's great. And anytime you can share, and even my wife has started to come around and watch, you know, more and more, because she said wrestling is just getting better. Because she used to watch it in the late '90s with me, because she liked some of the people, and now she likes some of the people, so she'll sit down and watch it. I think anytime you can all do that together, just as something to get together for a couple hours out of your week, it's always good. All right, so that brings us to our last true topic today, and that is the next part of our exciting United States Championship tournament, where we're going to try to crown what we believe is the greatest United States champion of all time. We are basing our feelings on only the title holder's specific title reign. So even if they're an all-time legend, we're trying to find that performer at that period of time and determining based on that period of time how good were they compared to their opponent. So today we are looking at Blackjack Mulligan, his third title reign in 1976, against Montel Vontavious Porter, who has the fourth longest title reign of all time. He held it for 343 days. And we're going to compare these two wrestlers, and then after we compare them, their differences and just our opinions on each performer, then we're going to give our pick as to who we think is going to who would win this particular matchup. So, Cedric, why don't you start and talk to us about what your first impressions going into this, what you knew about either of these two guys, your first impressions of Blackjack Mulligan and of MVP.
Well, sad to say, for someone who considers himself a really big fan of wrestling, and I've even accepted when you guys mentioned the whole wise old hour of wrestling, but I've always, you know, it's sad that I don't really know much about Blackjack Mulligan. Now, again, wisdom doesn't really mean that I was a historian. It's just I apply my own common sense and age to my opinions. But I was able to sit down, look up some matches on YouTube, and it's nice to see some of these 1970, mid-70s, late 70s matches with him. And my first impression of him was like, this guy reminds me of what I saw for the first time in JBL, when JBL broke off from APA and just became a single wrestler and started having success as a single wrestler. You know, the outfit, the build, just a tough old Texan, you know, the truth is, almost all tough old Texan wrestlers have that same mode, that same look, and that's that's what I saw in him. Just one tough guy, not much not much scientific behind his moves, just a strong brawler, and that was my impression of him. A guy that wasn't gonna give up. And speaking of finishing moves, he too at the time had one of the devastating claws, so I thought that was pretty unique to see how people would just submit to his finishing move, the claw. MVP, obviously has one, like you said, the fourth longest reign. I'm not sure if this takes into consideration other folks who have total reigns, even though it was like 4 or 5 of them.
No, it does
Total
not.
days, but to have a title, obviously modern day, because that wasn't that long ago. To have a title for that long in a company like the WWE speaks volumes of not just the trust they had on you, but you as well as a wrestler to be sold to the crowd. So good on MVP. I've seen him in different companies. I've seen him reinvent kind of sort of his character, his character outside of the ring gets reinvented based on what he's trying to play. The character inside the ring is always the same guy. He has that Power Ranger suit like JBL used to say. But he was a good sized man. He had his speed, his technicality, he had understanding of different moves. But he also knew how to brawl as well. He knew how to work a body part and just brawl and just beat you down. So very strange pairing for a fantasy match, but yet really good because styles make fights, and definitely two pseudo opposite styles that would probably match pretty well if we were to see them in a real life, once in a lifetime one-on-one match.
Okay, cool. So, Hauckster, what was your first impressions of these guys as you were going through their? But well, first of all, what did you think of either of these guys before you watched anything, and then afterward, what's your impression of both?
All right. Well, going into it, I had to actually do some research on Blackjack Mulligan with his title history, because for the life of me, I couldn't remember him being a main card heavyweight world champion. I always knew him as the mid card champion, as the U.S. champion. That's actually how I've known him. So I had to really do some research. And with MVP, he's that guy who was always kind of stuck in the mid card. So I thought it was an interesting matchup. Like, oh hey, yeah, both these guys are really well known mid card champs. So I had to do some research on Blackjack, and sure enough, I mean, it didn't take me long, but the guy's held numerous world championships, heavyweight championships, tag team world championships, and it really blew my mind to see how many world championships he actually had held. Because again, this is a wrestler from the 50s and 60s and 70s, so I really had to do my research on him rather than just watching a couple network specials. Because I mean, when you think of Blackjack, to me, I think of the U.S. Championship, so I had to really do some research on it. But going in, I mean, just thinking about the matchup in Prime versus Prime, it's hard to really pit the two against each other, because Blackjack Mulligan, if you don't know who he is, he's a big man, and I mean a big man. 6'9", 340 pounds, pure raw Texan, smash mouth Texan. Like I know nowadays, when we think of Texan, we think of Stone Cold Steve Austin, we think of Shawn Michaels, and go back a little bit further, you think about the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. But before them, man, Blackjack Mulligan, he's about as Texas can get. So you gotta do some research on him yourself and really watch some of his stuff, because the guy, as big as he was, man, the guy could move, and the guy was a brawler, man. He could take out anybody. Going on the flip side to MVP, I mean, yeah, Cedric already mentioned MVP pretty much had a little bit of everything, and to me, it's almost kind of sad, because to me, MVP had the potential to be a big breakout star, and I feel like he never really got that push beyond the mid card to really shine. Because I mean, he had the charisma and he had the in-ring ability. So it's good that we're doing this U.S. Championship because you get to showcase some of these guys that maybe never lived up to their true potential, but we could have still hold them in high regards. And yeah, MVP, he held it for over 400 days. So both these guys are very, very worthwhile. And a fun fact about Blackjack Mulligan, if you didn't know, real name is Robert DeRoy Wyndham. And if you've heard the name Wyndham, I know you have, all you wrestling marks out there. This is Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas's grandfather. So lineage here, man. Lineage.
All right, cool. So for me going into this, I had known Blackjack Mulligan only as a tag team guy, obviously with the Blackjacks. So I hadn't even realized he was a singles wrestler. And then with MVP, obviously I watched him throughout his time in WWE. I always enjoyed his character. I wasn't as big a fan of his in the ring at the time, so that was just kind of going back. He had a unique look. The ring gear that he wore was different than everyone else's, and I always thought that made him stand out. He also had one of those moves with the ball in that I used to hate because I was like, just move. But anyways, so that was just my impression going in. After taking a look at more matches and trying to watch things with each of these guys, a few things I can tell you is, so Blackjack Mulligan is a legit badass. Like, there's just nothing else you could say. The black glove he would often wear over his fist, and to just watch him work the punches that he would work. I watched a match with him and Ric Flair, a few others, but he was just the epitome of what you would call a brawler. He just absolutely destroyed you with kicks and punches and body slams. There wasn't a lot of technical wrestling going on. MVP was a great all-round guy. He could brawl if he had to. He could work technical if he had to. He could use speed if he had to. A better overall athlete going in. And we'll get to who he thinks going to win later. But just going on, I learned that both of these guys had wrestled high-level competition during the times and title reigns. And so, comparing them and putting them together would have been a very, very interesting matchup in today's day and age. So, with that being said, Cedric, how do you see this match going and who wins?
Excuse me. I just want to add quickly, it's funny, something that I realized also while I was looking over MVP's resume during his 343 days as U.S. champion. He also held the tag team titles during that time frame with Matt Hardy. So he was a dual champ at the time. So there's no slouch, and I was hearing the commentating, and JB at one point called them like the future of this industry. So obviously somebody who holds those kind of comments, holds dual titles, first IWGP Intercontinental title, which obviously got raised in prestige by Shinsuke Nakamura and others. So the guy was no slouch, obviously. But saying that, and based on everything that we already mentioned about these two athletes, I see Blackjack Mulligan, from the start, just imposing his bigger build, his stronger will, his devastating punches and kicks, clothesline, suplex, body slam. Not your everyday basic moves today, but back then your everyday debilitating moves, if you will. At some point, obviously, MVP would use his speed and his athleticism and his more well-rounded offense. But at the end of the day, when I was looking at the resume during the time frame that they reigned, Blackjack Mulligan's third reign in this occasion and MVP's one reign. I noticed the MVP when he fought the bigger guys, the Kanes, the Batistas, he wasn't really winning. If he won, it was a DQ
Mm-hmm.
count out, but he wasn't really winning too clean unless it was a no holds barred that he won against Batista. For the most part, against the bigger guys, he was losing. And if it wasn't in a tag team match, he wasn't really putting his name out there as a winner against them. Now, Blackjack, during that title reign, names that came out: Paul Jones, Wahoo McDaniels, Ruffles R. Jones, Mighty Igor, Dusty Rhodes, Dino Bravo, eventually losing the title to Bobo Brazil, which I looked up a little bit on Bobo Brazil's bio, and the man has his own legendary status as is. When I did those comparisons, who MVP won over: Matt Hardy, Batista, Jimmy Wang Yang, Kane, Finley, Jamie Noble, etc., and the type of matches, all that factored in, I would give the match to Blackjack Mulligan. Again, no disrespect to MVP, what he's accomplished or what he accomplished during that time frame. I just think when I go career versus career at the time that we're analyzing, Blackjack Mulligan definitely stands out for what he accomplished, and within the ring, his style I think will overcome eventually and debilitate MVP's athletic style. Just too much of a brawler in my opinion. Too strong.
Okay. Hulkster, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad Cedric brought up the tag team championships that MVP held with Matt Hardy, because really, when you think about MVP as the United States champion, for me, the only true feud that I can really come to mind was the feud against Matt Hardy, in which they held the tag team championships as a way for MVP to kind of not defend against Matt Hardy, even though Matt and him, they had their countless one-upsmanships matches where it wasn't necessarily wrestling matches. They had like the arm wrestling matches, they had a chess match, they had all these different small things. But when it finally came to the wrestling matches itself, yeah, he did end up losing to Matt Hardy. There was a couple back and forth matches where he did beat him. But when you're talking about him versus the bigger guys, as Cedric pointed out, yeah, MVP always had that, I guess, that against him. And maybe that was just because he did get stuck in a booking standpoint where he could never really get out of the mid-card. Blackjack Mulligan, on the other hand, this guy's got lots of victories over a lot of big-name guys. Dusty Rhodes, as you mentioned, Cedric. And just looking at the reigns themselves, Blackjack held it 3 separate times for a total of 498 days. MVP, on the other hand, let me pull this back up here real quick. I just had it written down.
363.
Yeah, there we go. 363. So both have very impressive reigns. But as far as in-ring style, sure, MVP was the better athlete. He was the better technical wrestler. However, you have a guy who's 6'9", well over 300 pounds, and when you want to compare in-ring styles, think of JBL, only bigger and more aggressive. And I don't see MVP going past Blackjack in this one either. I gotta tip my hat to the Wyndham family here.
Okay. So, I'm with you guys. I think Blackjack Mulligan sweeps this one 3-0 as far as our opinions on who would win this matchup. For me, the main things that stand out is I was going to point out, as Cedric did, MVP seemed to sort of struggle against guys that were bigger than him. And therefore, I think that it goes to say that Blackjack Mulligan is just a giant man. Not a fat man either, just big, solid cowboy, And so
he's an oak.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see him being successful against him. And I think that the old school brutal style that he's working is something else that you have to look at. And it's very, very hard for someone like MVP to overcome something like that, especially when he was kind of known for his flashy maneuvers, and he's going to go to hit one of those flashy maneuvers, and Blackjack's going to punch him right in the mouth, and probably wouldn't be long after that where he gets hit with the lariat, and yep. Won't say it'd be a squash, but I will say that it would be he'd be handily handled by Blackjack Mulligan, who was successful against Dusty Rhodes when they were both in their prime. So just goes to tell you. Cool. You guys got anything else as far as a takeaway?
Nah, I think we've said our piece. And if you haven't seen any Blackjack Mulligan matches, he's on the network. Go check him out.
So next week should be pretty interesting. We're going to have Wahoo McDaniel's United States Championship run, which was, let me just make sure I'm right here. It is his, hold on. Should be his 5th title reign in 1984 that we're going to be looking at. And, or is it? Hold on. Yeah, it is. It's his 5th title reign in 1984 we're looking at. And this is going to be put up against John Cena and his United States Championship reign back in 2015. So this should be hold on. Is that the right one? Let me just make sure. Darn it. I got them all mixed up. Days held. Sorted. Yes, it's his reign in 2015. That's what we're going to be focusing on. So this should be another interesting matchup. Wahoo McDaniel, just known for his toughness, his fire, and devastating chops, versus John Cena with possibly one of the best in-ring working years he's ever had. So that's your sneaky peek of the week for next week's matchup for the tournament, and it'll be Hulkster's turn to select the Instant Classic Match of the Week.
Alrighty, and I'll give you guys another sneaky peek right here because I'm going to keep it in Texas, and I'm going to actually have a little throwback to our Fantasy Tag Team Championship tournament we did, and we're going to have the Von Erichs versus the Fabulous Freebirds. Who doesn't want to talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. Should be great. Do you have any idea which match you're doing yet?
Right now, I'm leaning towards WCCW 61, 1983, the 6-man tag with the Freebirds versus Kerry, David, and Kevin. Sorry, I just had a brain fart there. But yeah, I'm leaning towards that one right now, to be honest with you.
All right, cool.
Because it was a lumberjack match, and lumberjack matches, it's hard to pull off a good one, but this was a pretty good one.
Okay, Cedric, you got anything else today? Otherwise, we are over our 2-hour point.
Nah, I got a few stuff, but now we'll leave it for some other time. There was a few praise rants and stuff like that, but I can leave it on my paper, put a little asterisk.
Yeah, I say we do it next time, mainly because I think that we covered so much good stuff about finishing moves today. That was really, when I go back and listen to this later, I'm gonna have to really pay attention again because we covered so much good stuff on that subject today. So, I want to thank you guys being on here with me once again. I want to thank all the listeners. Again, if you want to give us any feedback, even if you want to come talk wrestling with us, just let us know. We're at Jobbers Court on Twitter. We now have the webpage, the W2M.net.com Jobbers Court podcast site, which is there in our Facebook page, which is Jobbers Court. So if you liked what you heard, you want to know more about us, check out anything that we have listed there. And guess until next time, Rasquash signing off and court is adjourned. Thank you.
The following podcast is a W2M Network partnership production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.